I even like Amazon tree boas because unless you wave your hand in front of their face or breathe right on them, they don't really strike at you. Good morning guys, and welcome to the video. It is an amazingly sunny, beautiful day today in Texas because, well, we don't really have winter. Now I'm gonna make a video on something that may not surprise you, but I love every aspect about snakes. I even like Amazon tree boas because unless you wave your hand in front of their face or breathe right on them, they don't really strike at you. And keep in mind, if a snake is super defensive or super food aggressive, all you have to do is never free handle them and let them be. So especially for an Amazon tree boa, I never hold this guy. But if I have to, I can. But for the most part, I'll use a hook. So as most of you know, a lot of snakes have different personalities, but there's definitely species that have almost no defensive nature and will pretty much barely ever bite you. They may be flighty before they try to bite. Amazon tree boas are not great pets if you want a handleable animal, but a corn snake certainly is. Let's be honest guys, snake bites are not a big deal for the human being. They barely hurt and it's a very short-term experience as far as you may bleed a little bit and minimal pain. But what can happen is you can have teeth break off when the snake bites you, and quite frankly, when a snake replaces its teeth, you open it up for infection. So an infection in the mouth of a snake is a really bad thing. I've had it happen before because I actually had an animal miss a prey item and hit the water bowl and break off a tooth, and when they replaced the tooth, it actually got infected. So when a tooth breaks off, whether it's in your skin, in the prey's skin, or they're just hitting the side of their tub, there's always a possibility of that open wound from where the tooth fell off to get infected, which we want to minimize as much as possible. Now I'm gonna be honest, I love the way snakes move and I love the way snakes feel when you're holding them. But what I also love is how snakes eat. The whole way that they unhinge their jaw and put down a prey item is just amazing to me. I can't ignore the fact that they do eat mice. That mice are living beings whether or not they're frozen thawed or live feeding. So I do feed only frozen thawed, but it doesn't make it any less of a mouse than a live feeder. It's important to realize that every single living animal is going to eat something else, whether it be plants or other animals. Therefore, it's really important to be cognizant of where your food comes from, whether that be feeders for your snakes or food that you're eating yourself. Now take this venison for example. I know that this animal lived a good life out in the wild and was harvested humanely, and I know where the food came from. A lot of times with things like dog food, you never know where your food comes from, or beef that you pick up at the store, or pork. You don't know how things are kept. So I think it's an issue when we try to disconnect ourselves from our food sources. Sometimes we forget when we pick up things from the grocery store that these were once living animals, and I understand that. But also realize that things like your dog kibble is going to be petrified animal parts from different places all over the world and factory farmed and stuff like that. Now you guys know that I'm the furthest thing from a vegan, but I do understand that my food comes from animals and that my animals eat other animals. Now as a breeder who produces a lot of animals, as anyone who's bred before knows, you're going to deal with death, whether it be the hatchlings themselves or having to give other prey items as far as anoles and stuff like that. So to me, there's no hierarchy of life, meaning that a rat is just as important as an anole, as important as a snake. So therefore, I have no problem if I have an issue with a snake that has come out kinked and it's not gonna have a great quality of life. I do what I believe to be the right thing, and I will feed it off to, say my kink snake, because I don't really want to create a crutch for an animal that wouldn't survive in the wild, because quite frankly, I can't feel what they feel, so I don't know what they're going through. Even if they look like they're doing fine, who knows if the animal's in pain or there's some type of structural deformality which is actually bringing down their life quality. And therefore, I think it's the responsible thing to recycle it as food, because that snake is just as important as a mouse or a rat. So you can't say that snakes are better than rats just because we like them more. Yes, I like snakes better than rats, but who's to say that a snake isn't a good food source for another snake or something out there in the wild? Everything eats something, and We gotta understand that fact, and every breeder knows, especially if you're breeding colubrids at any level, that you're going to have a certain amount of snakes that die, a certain amount of snakes that you have to cull. So if you have a weird fear of death or a fear of snakes dying, I don't think snake breeding is for you, because things are gonna go wrong, stuff is going to go wrong, and anyone who claims to have some type of issue with seeing death is certainly not a big breeder, or they're just lying to you. Now, like I said before, I do feed frozen thawed because there is a possibility of your animal getting hurt from a live rodent bite. And quite frankly, it's a lot easier if you have, you know, a whole bunch of frozen thawed rodents in your freezer rather than picking up live every single week. But I try not to ignore the fact that whether it's frozen thawed or live, it is still an animal. Now, I don't love seeing videos of things like saltwater crocs taken down or eating an olive python like this, but quite frankly, once I get over the fact, I realize that it's just the subtle cruelty of nature, and quite frankly, that croc is going to live, so who am I to say that it's not supposed to eat? And you know, sometimes it reminds you of the frailty of life and how lucky we are to live our lives, as well as keeping these snakes in captivity. So all of that being said, I feel so lucky to be able to keep snakes. I love every single thing about snakes. I love every single thing about nature and pretty much all animals. And I just know that being ignorant to something or trying to disconnect to the reality of certain aspects of our hobby or animals we keep or even keeping our dogs or even what we eat leads to negligence. You're actually doing more harm than good. You're protecting yourself, but you may not necessarily be doing the right thing for your animals. So I hope you like this video, and quite frankly, it may be a little harsh, but what I want to do is just be honest at all times and be very, very straightforward, because I want you guys to know the reality of keeping these animals. I mean, I don't want you guys to get the idea that you're gonna breed snakes and everything's gonna live and everything's gonna go perfect, because quite frankly, it's not. If you embrace that reality earlier and you're okay with that and you try to do the right thing no matter what happens, this is an amazing hobby. It's an amazing thing to do. You know, you can really make a difference as far as if you're breeding animals that aren't readily captive bred, then we can get a lot of pressures off of these animals in the wild. Things like that we import from Indonesia, or even snakes that we have here. You know, we need people breeding corn snakes. We need people breeding yellow rat snakes, or else people are gonna be collecting them out of the wild. Or, you know, this olive python, we need people captive breeding these in the States, or else people are gonna be smuggling them from Australia just because there's economic need. And when there's economic need for animals, unfortunately, those animals usually get taken advantage of, and it's our responsibility as reptile keepers and responsible animal lovers to breed these reptiles, keep them well, and feed them what they need to be fed. You know, you can vary up their diet a bit as far as king snakes in the wild eat a lot of other snakes, they probably eat more so primarily other snakes in the wild, and so do olive pythons. They also eat other snakes. So it's important to also realize your other snakes' needs, as far as, you know, king snakes may do very well being supplemented with a few other snakes. I mean, as long as those other snakes aren't used just for that. And now, I'm not saying that I breed corns just for king snake food at all, but it's a good way to recycle and keep the life cycle going. And you know, out of those 20 babies, if 2 are malformed and those get to go to the king snake and the others live a great life and go to great homes, I think that that's a win-win. That being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and if you made it this far, you're on the team.